You must build a 5-story building. And this is how you get your wealth and power. Now, the first thing you work on is economics. You started practicing group economics, making your money bounce in your own community 8 to 12 times before it leaves. The second floor is politics. Our people got that backwards. They want to get into politics before they get in the economy. Backwards as hell. You won't make it. You buy every politician with the money you made on the first floor. The third floor is your court system, your police system. You control the court system so they won't be getting 40 years in jail for marijuana. Then the fourth floor is media. You take your money off the first floor and you buy media. Black folk own 35 thousandths of 1% in media. You don't own media, you can't communicate, you can't organize, you can't motivate. The fifth floor is education. Education is a tool, just like a hammer and a saw. But you got to have an economy. See, when a kid graduates from school, the first thing you do, he should be able to go back to his own community and start building businesses and industries and drawing money into his community. And
Thank you for tapping in. This is Brian HRap B. Williams. This is the Intervention Media. For a few minutes for HRap. That's the name of the show. Thank you for tapping in. Hit that like, hit that share. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tap in. Hit that like, hit that share. Tell a friend to tap in. If you're watching this, if you're not watching this live, go to www.theendofthebench.com, www.theendofthebench.com. At that point, you can watch this as well as the Black History video that I will be posting shortly. Well, you'll be seeing an excerpt from it shortly, and then we can move forward. Thank you. And before I do this every episode. I want to thank Dolores and John. Without Dolores and John, there is no me. Dolores and John are my parents. Pay homage to my parents each and every episode, because without them, there is no me. Without me, you'd be doing something else with your valuable time. I thank you for sharing your valuable time with me. And with that being said, allow me to move forward. Now, crabs in the barrel. This is a common theme in our community. We got the crabs in the barrel mentality. We need to do better. And we have to do this and we have to do that. And we have to stop being our own worst enemies. Let's talk about that saying, crabs in a barrel. Crabs in a barrel. Are we crabs in a barrel? No, we're not. We're human beings. We're thinking, reactionary, emotional, spiritual, wonderful human beings in this community, around this community, and everything about this community is wonderful. Now, what I want you to understand is this. When you say we're like crabs in a barrel, first and foremost, let's talk about that in itself. Crabs in a barrel. Our barrel a crab's natural habitat? No, it's not. When you see crabs walking along the seafloor, if you go to the Bahamas, if you go to anywhere in the Caribbean, anywhere where the water is crystal clear, and you see sea animals in their natural habitat, they're not attacking each other. When you put people in dire situations, they react in accordance to their situation. So if you find yourself in a situation with someone from our community and they're being a little aggressive, it's because of the situation that we've been placed in. A lot of us don't believe that. A lot of us say, well, you need to grow past it. Well, you need to educate yourself on human behavior, and then you can make that sweeping statement that what we need to or we need not do. Because if you believe anything about human behavior, you'll understand human behavior comes from conditions. If you are in a position to whereas you have been successful, or everybody in your family has been successful, the likelihood of you being successful is greater than a person who comes from public housing. If you come from an underserved community, if your parents they can't educate you. If they can't educate you, you won't know. If you don't know, you are living in accordance to your conditions. And that's what the problem is. We are not crabs in a barrel. We've been herded into certain areas in this country. Of course, some of us escape from those conditions. Some of us rise above those conditions. Some of us immerse ourselves in those conditions and adapt in accordance to their conditions. And that might be the problem. But this crab in a barrel situation, as you see on the picture right here, that's the way we have been conditioned to live. And we won't be able to live past our condition. It's just like if you never acknowledge that you have a cold, you will cough and you sneeze and you have a fever into perpetuity. But if you acknowledge it, then you take steps like changing your bed sheets, your bed clothes in its entire comforter, sheets, pillowcases, spraying down your mattress with disinfectant. Now you're preparing, you are prepared to sleep and then more conducive to health environment, then you are going to eat properly or eat more. Once you eat more, what will happen? Your body will get stronger, and then you will rest more. Then once you rest more and you eat more, what will happen after that? You rest more, you eat more, then your body will naturally empower itself. And when your body naturally empowers itself, what happens from that point? Guess what? Your body defeats the virus and the germ that gave you what is called a cold, the rhinovirus, to be specific, if you just want to be technical. Now, this is what I want you to understand. If you never acknowledge that you have the sniffles, you never acknowledge this cough, you never acknowledge the fever, it continues to damage your body to the point where you may be at the point of no return and you're just walking around in a sickly state. That's what is going on in this community. We are not naturally hurting each other. As a matter of fact, by and large, we get along. But what we've allowed people to do is post things so we can see the worst of us. How is it that you know, every time a Black person is unalived another Black person, you know, every time someone accosts someone from our community or any and everything in between, but you don't know about the scholars, you don't know about the engineers, you don't know about the philosophers, you don't know about Michael Eric Dyson. He's the most famous pastor in the world right now in our community. You know, he teaches theology, and you know about Michael Eric Dyson. No, not Michael Eric Dyson. Can't think of his name right now. I'll think of it in a second. Neil Tyson deGrasse. We know about him because he's the smartest. He's an engineer, and he's the brain. He's a walking brain. And you know about people like Cornel West, you know about people in the past like Dr. King and so forth and so on. But why don't you know about tradition? Why don't you know the name of the mayor? The name of the mayor in Baltimore, Maryland, who has crime down. Why don't you know the name of the mayor in Chicago, Illinois, who has violent crime down? You know, Chicago's the most dangerous place in the world. In Chicago, we're a synonym for violence. And then you always think Black violence. You never say it, but when you hear somebody got shot in Chicago, you don't think, man, that could have been an Italian kid, an Asian kid, somebody from of European or Asian descent. You think Black because you've been conditioned to think that way. You see how it follows? This is the conditioning that you're under, and we never, ever, ever, ever break the conditions. We continue to fall subject to those conditions, and when you fall subject to those conditions, this is what happens. You fall victim to someone else determining who you are, telling you, giving you a projection of who you are, and then you believe it because you've been conditioned to believe that. Now, what I want us to do is take a second to realize what I'm saying. Am I saying that we're perfect? Am I saying that we don't have any flaws? Am I saying that we are a nation of people who should excuse everything to conditions? No. What we need to do is identify those conditions. And once you identify a problem, you should automatically start trying to solve that problem. You automatically identify something that is a detriment to you, and you start attempting to solve that thing that is a detriment to you. More times than not, you will figure out a way to get past it. So instead of identifying ourselves as crabs in a barrel, and then we sit there, because this is the currency for complaints. The currency for complaints, meaning the bill that comes along with complaining, is to find a solution. If you want to complain, you need to have a solution. If you don't have a solution, zip it. Because we know the problems, we know the issues, we know what's going on. But are you prepared to offer a solution? That is the thing. Why are we crabs in the barrel? Well, the condition is brought about because we were herded into certain communities in this country after being enslaved for a couple hundred years, after being denigrated, after being attempted to strip us of our humanity, and then we were redlined and herded into certain areas. Those areas are, in essence, the barrel. It is metaphorically the barrel. Some of those, like the housing projects, what we call housing, city housing, those entities were built for people who are building roads and building bridges, which when you are an engineer or you build and working in construction, that is a lucrative place of employment. And then you'll be able to purchase land and you'll be able to create your own community with your own essence, with your own cultural evidence that you'll make, cultural footprint. And then at that moment, what happens? You have a affluent neighborhood. Now, if you put me in that same housing situation and lock me into it, and once you lock me into it, you never let me out, or you make it illegal, or you make it a threat to my humanity, then at that point, you've put a cap on that barrel and just let a little sunlight come in. So occasionally someone will escape and we can point to that person to say, hey, the rest of you people in that barrel should get out of that because he did. But what did he have to do it? He had to step, crawl, fight, bite. No, what he should have been doing is using ourselves as a social ladder, as the ability to uplift and pull each one another out. But once you're trapped into this mentality of survival, you'll do anything to survive. And that's what leads to the barrel, the crab in the barrel mentality. Now, what we have to do is understand, as our elders did, as our ancestors did, the only way we get out of this is together. We don't have to be crabs in a barrel. We've been conditioned to be that way. We've been put physically conditioned, mentally conditioned, spiritually conditioned, because we've turned and fight each other at every turn. All of our conversations are combative. We are not having conversations. We're not listening to understand. We're listening to respond and rebuke whatever the other person said because I have seen it on television, or I've seen it on Facebook, or I heard about it, or they said, or we said, or this said, and things of that nature. And that is the problem, because we continue to regurgitate negativity into our children, to our grandchildren, to our neighbors and our friends and our family, but we never repeat the positive aspects of it. We know I have a dream. We know by any means necessary, but do you understand how they got to those points? Do you understand that Dr. King had his PhD by the time he was 26 years old? Do you know that Malcolm X was incarcerated and read and wrote out the entire dictionary? He was a functioning illiterate when he walked into the penitentiary. He walked out as the dude we know as Malcolm X. That's what we understood. We only focus on the negativity, but we never focus on the positivity. And again, this is re-cementing that crab in the barrel mentality, because we're sealing ourselves and sealing our fate. We're sealing our fate. But what we have to do is get out of that. We can no longer live in that mentality, that state of mind, that state of being, if you will. We can no longer live like that, because when you live like that, you will permeate that into your children, your grandchildren, your nieces, nephews, cousins, neighbors, and anybody else who comes in contact with you, because all you're doing is affirming what you assume is the natural course of events. And then we make foolish, asinine statements like, well, the people in that community treated me better than my people. First and foremost, they didn't treat you better than your people, because everybody in your community didn't treat you one way. Maybe a few hundred people in your community treated you in a horrible way. Maybe a few dozen people treated you in a horrible way. But you can't speak for the entire community, because most people in this country who are in my community don't traditionally veer out of their communities. So how would you know what the people like here in Chicago? How would you know how the people on 35th Street treat you if you're always on Madison, which is 35 blocks to the north, which is about 4 to 6 miles away from where you are? You don't know. You just say the people on the west side, the people on the south side, at every place I went. Well, you know what? How about this? Is it possible that you were just gravitating to the same kinds of people because you've been programmed to gravitate towards that negativity? They're black, they call them blurs. They're black nerds. They're black jocks. They're black spiritual people. They're black geniuses. They're black people who participate in criminality. They're black people of every walk of life in the history of the world. Maybe you didn't find your proverbial tribe. And that's why you kept running into the same thing. And that's why you perceive this as crabs in a barrel. There's nothing in the world that we're doing on earth that my people are not immersing themselves in, no matter what it is, whether it be positive, negative, or indifferent. And if you continue to assume that, that's why you are jumping back into the barrel. Because if you did it, are you assuming that you are a one-off, that you are the only person that lives, thinks, breathes, and acts the way you act on the planet Earth that looks like you? And if you do that, maybe people mistreat you. Ain't their problem, is yours, because at that point you're a narcissist and you have delusions of grandeur. Now, you are an individual, you are a snowflake, but at the end of the day, each snowflake is different, but they are the same snowflake. And that's what I need you to understand. We can no longer immerse ourselves in the opinions of others. We can no longer immerse ourselves in the point of view of others. We must come together and live cohesively in this barrel, use ourselves as stepping ladders, because guess what? I'm a rung on the ladder for they're not even here yet, grandchildren. Well, actually, I got two. Yeah, there's neither here nor there. But for my grandchildren and my nieces and my nephews and my nieces and nephews' children, I'm a rung on the ladder. So you allow them, instead of being a crab in the barrel, how about we be a ladder in the barrel so the younger crabs can crawl out and live a natural course of life? This is why every episode I say, I do this program for my great-grandchildren's great-grandchildren so they can live a better life than I ever imagined. That's why I do it. Because if we continue to buy into this crab in the barrel mentality, or the trope that's the way we live, we will continue to perpetuate that negativity. Oh, well, they look like those young kids. Shout out to Kyrie Irving, who say he's not even addressing people as YNs. Because why would you address yourself as YN word? At some point, I'm going to do an episode about the N word and how we need to do away with it and stop trying to embrace poison. Would you call yourself the disease called cancer after 200 or 300 years calling yourself a cancer? No, you would not. So why would we take the most vile word? Think about how many people died, and that was the last thing they heard, N-word, and we've embraced it, but we're going to get away from it. I'm not going to get away from the topic at hand, but I want us to understand this is what we do when we regurgitate these silly colloquialisms about our community. That's what we're doing. We're saying, hey, this is what's going on. This is what we're dealing with. We are not better than this. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a lie. We don't have to participate in any lies about what's going on in our community. We just don't. Please don't participate in the foolishness that people tell you about being black. Oh, well, we're black, so we have to have substandard. We're black, so we have to accept what people give us. We're black. No, we are black, and we are expecting, participating, living, and breathing everything that's great about this country and everything that's great about this world. So we're not crabs in a barrel. We're victims of circumstances. We're prisoners of war. We're people who have been under attack for hundreds of years, and we refuse to acknowledge that attack. And once we acknowledge that attack, we'll mentally be prepare ourselves to fight. And we prepare ourselves to fight. It's not just a physical fight. And I'm going to talk about that later. It's not just a mental fight. That's the one I'm speaking of now. It's a spiritual fight. It's a financial fight. It's an academic fight. It's once you prepare yourself to fight, no one prepares themselves to fight and then prepares to lose. They prepare to win no matter what they're coming up against. Because if you're preparing, you think you can win. If you think you can win, you will win. If you think you will win, you're unstoppable. But we have put ourselves in situations to whereas we haven't bought into unstoppable. We've bought into mediocre. We bought into secondary. We bought into foolish behaviors and tropes. Speaking of foolish behaviors and tropes, one of the most foolish behavior and tropes that I hear permeating through our community on a regular basis is the fact that I'm just playing devil's advocate. Who the hell advocates for negativity? Why does the devil need another advocate? If you believe in this thing called the devil, then why are you advocating for him? You need not be advocating for him at all. This is something that we must get away from. We must stop advocating for negativity. Please stop advocating for negativity, because when you advocate for negativity, you enhance it. And when you enhance it, you put yourself in it. And when you put yourself in it, you hurt yourself, because I don't need you advocating for negativity, because it only destroys you. Why are you speaking on behalf of negativity instead of speaking on behalf of solution-based mentality, of the ability to work through negative entities and negative circumstances? We don't need to be advocating for Satan, so to speak. We need to be advocating for God, the enhancement, the beauty, the development, the enrichment of anything that you come in contact with. And if you're not doing that, then you're suffering the consequences of what's going on in this world. And if you really want to live that way, I'm sorry, I'm not going to participate in that. You know, why is it that we feel that in order to move forward, we must, you have to see what may happen? No, you don't. Because guess what? When you get up and wake up in the morning, it is a possibility of the worst thing possible happening. So why even go into it? You know, you could be a victim of a car accident. You could be a victim of violence. You could be struck by lightning. Hell, you could slip and fall and break your neck. We all understand that. So we don't need to play the devil's advocate anymore. We don't need to advocate for negativity. We don't need to put ourselves in a situation to whereas, hey man, I'm just being realistic. Well, the realistic situation is this: you don't have to let everybody know what could happen, what may happen, and what could be on the horizon. Who cares what's on the horizon? Let's talk about what could be on the negative part of the horizon. Let's talk about what could happen. Don't look at what's behind you. Look at the finish line. If you're not paying attention to the finish line, you're losing the race already. We don't need you to pay attention what could happen in regards to drowning, failing, or being debilitated. We need you to start saying, okay, this has happened. We know what not to do. Let's talk about what we need to do. We have to stop doing that. That's not the reality of the world. Well, if you don't pay attention to what could happen, we already know what could happen. That's why they have books. That's why they have history. That's why you learn all those things in school. That's why you read to enhance your knowledge base. That's why you move forward in life, so you can be the best you can be. So you don't need the devil. You don't need to advocate for the devil. The devil's doing a damn good job. You know, like when you're in church, the devil's busy this week. That's why you say that, because he don't take no PTO. He don't take no day off. He don't take no water breaks. He on your behind at all times. But if you advocate for him, you do allow him to take a step back and say, "Home, watch my work." We don't need to let people understand what could go wrong in our community. We know what could go wrong. We don't have a monopoly on negativity, because we don't. We don't have a monopoly on murder, crime, mayhem, rape, chaos. That's part of the world. That's been here since. It's going to be here when you leave. It was here before you got here, and it is here right now. There's somebody watching this right now calling me silly, and hey, they leave it in the comments on a regular basis. Shout out to them. Next time, hit like though. Even hit thumbs now. That works too, because you acknowledge it. That's all I need. And if you're watching, hit that like, hit that share, tell a friend to tap in. Again, but this is where I want us to be. We don't have to sit around and advocate for the devil. We don't have to I'm just keeping it real. You're not keeping it real. You're keeping it from a limited perspective. I don't need you to keep it that real. You're being foolish. You're regurgitating negativity or half facts. And then when you regurgitate half facts because some negative person or some person who's pimping you with negativity, Candace on, Jason Whitlock, well, slavery was around way before the United States. Chattel slavery was nothing like any other brand of slavery in the history of the world. No one in the history of the world was taking their identity, their diet, their language, their deity. None of that was all that. No one was reduced to less than human. Because if you want to, the Jews were enslaved too. Well, guess what? That would be us. But that's neither here nor there. Let's just use the Ashkenazi Jews from Europe, for example. They were persecuted. They were 6 million of them was killed. Do you understand how beautiful the world would be if only 6 million of our ancestors were killed in the midst of this transatlantic slave trade, in the midst of chattel slavery, in the midst of oppression, in the midst of colonization, only 6 million of us that died. I'm not here to get into the pain and anguish Olympics. We would get the gold, but that's not the point. I'm here to let you know that in the event that you realize what's wrong, you don't have to advocate for the devil because he's advocating for himself. And if he does not need a cheerleader, he does not need an executive assistant, he does not need an advocate. He's doing a damn good. He is all of the above. Why don't you advocate for God? That way you can uplift those YNs, as y'all call them. Start talking to them. Start talking at them. Start enhancing, embracing, and uplifting instead of advocating for negativity, identifying what's wrong, and denigrating. See, that's the problem. And while we're advocating, what we need to do is start realizing who our enemy is. Who the enemy is. It's the people who are bringing negativity and denigration to your community. It's the people who are defunding things. It's the people who have given you a lack of knowledge base. Why is it that you have a president and a secretary of defense that want to put up people from another country? Because let's be honest, the Confederate, that was a whole nother country. When they receded from the United States of America, they created their own country. And when they created their own country, they had their own president, they had their own currency. And guess what happened? They lost the war. They lost the war. Perfect example. Western Europe and Eastern Europe, they used to have a gigantic wall up because that war was never really settled up until the 1989. Well, the wall went down in 89. They were separate. So one side believed in communism, the other side believed in democracy. And then the wall came down in 89, 90. I'm not remembering which one it was. The wall came down and they reunited the country. At that point, you don't see statues of Adolf Hitler. You don't see statues of the Third Reich. As a matter of fact, in the event that you bring that thing up publicly, you may be incarcerated. But they want to throw up statues. Again, you're identifying your enemy and not putting yourself in the eye of the enemy and not identifying as the enemy yourself. See, the only way you can stop acting as if you are that crab or that perceived crab is to identify the other crabs are not the problem. It's the conditions that are the problem. And when you identify that, then you will relax around those other crabs, and those other crabs become a community. That community uplifts itself, and then you will move forward. But as long as you stay ignorant, defunding schools, defunding places of employment, doing all these things that will only denigrate and destroy your community, you will find yourself falling subject to their game plan. And that game plan is to turn you against yourself. And not just in a literal sense. Yourself is your lady, your children, your family, your friends, your community. And then meanwhile, they are defunding Medicaid, so you'll be sicker. They are defunding academic programs, so you'll be less intelligent or less informed. And then you'll stay ignorant and you're physically weaker, mentally weaker, and they'll dominate you. That's the game plan. But as long as you advocate for the devil, as long as you put yourself in a situation to whereas you can make sense out of nonsense, you will continue to lose, and you will lose until the day you die. And that's just the way the world works. That is this game of life that we've been placed in. That is how we are losing the fight, because we will continue to advocate for negativity, understand negativity, and live in the midst of negativity. And that negative entity will, in essence, put you in a situation to whereas you will die, lose, and denigrate yourself. While you're advocating for the negativity in the world, while you're advocating for the things that will destroy you in the world, guess what happens? The rest of the world moves in front of you. And for those who disagree with me, those who say, hey, man, I don't understand where you're coming from. I don't understand. I don't get it. This video that I'm about to pull up right now, which I should have set up in pre-production, but I didn't. So bear with me. This will show you that you do have a true enemy, that you do have a situation to whereas you will suffer the consequences if you don't know what's going on. And this is what you've been up against for at least 350 years, but 161 years as an emancipated individual. I want you to see this. I want you to hear this. I want you to pay attention to this, and I'll be back shortly.
the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. In the summer of 1964, civil rights activists from the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and the Congress for Racial Equality joined forces to launch a nonviolent effort to desegregate Mississippi's political system. And if you like stories like this, you can find more stories like this at whatmikehistory.com. Also, if you like to support the channel, you can do so by Buy Me Coffee and Patreon page in the description below. Please give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and support the YouTube channel. But without further ado, let's get started. During a period between 1890 and 1910, Southern states effectively disenfranchised African Americans. This was accomplished by passing state constitutional amendments and other laws to impose financial costs, literacy tests, and residency requirements on voter registration. These practices were upheld by the United States Supreme Court, and even when they were overruled, states would create new methods to exclude African Americans, such as grandfather clauses and white primaries. They maintained this exclusion of blacks from the political system well into the 1960s. By 1964, the civil rights movement was well underway and had made significant progress. The Freedom Riders in 1961 had challenged Jim Crow laws in the segregated South, and Martin Luther King had delivered his renowned I Have a Dream speech in August of 1963 at the March on Washington. Despite this, African Americans in the South were still being denied their constitutional right to vote due to intimidation and violence, poll taxes, and literacy taxes. Without access to the polls, political change in favor of civil rights was slow to non-existent. This bleak reality, it became apparent that a broader strategy would be required to dismantle this systemic prejudice. Consequently, the Council of Federated Organizations was established in 1962. This was an amalgamation of the 4 major civil rights groups: the NAACP, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and the Congress for Racial Equality. And this marked a major shift in the civil rights movement, transforming it from a set of individual battles to a statewide strategy.
Now, as you see, what was the first thing that you heard from that? You heard that the people at the top set up barriers so people would not be able to work together. And what happened? Those crabs in the barrel that y'all love to talk about. We're crabs in the barrel. We're on our own worst enemy. We'll never work together. You just saw it happen. See, and if you want to watch the rest of that, you can either go to One Mike History here on YouTube, or you can do me a favor. You can do your boy a favor, and you can go to www.theendofthebench.com. You can go to www.theendofthebench.com. Once you go to www.theendofthebench.com, you'll be able to watch this in its entirety if you're just tapping in. And then you'll be able to watch that video in its entirety and understand why I showed that video in reference to this crab in the barrel situation. You just saw that, hey, things ain't working. And what they do, they had information, they had history on their side, and they understood that uniting and working together was the only way to do this. That is not a crab in the barrel mentality. That is a human being seeing that the only way we're going to do this is to work together and move forward in this situation, or we will destroy ourselves one day at a time. And if you notice, oh man, the vote doesn't work. Well, actually, the vote does work because you put people in power who can help you. You put people, it's a stair-stepping situation. You create a foundation of finance. And once you create a foundation of finance, you are hiring people. So now the Black unemployment rate is going down because Black people are hiring Black people, just like Jewish people hire Jewish people, Latino people hire Latino people, and people of European descent hire those people. If we establish our floor of finance, then at that point we can establish, now we got finance, and then you got academics. Now you educating with the money that you've obtained, and now you got the money, and then you go into mass media so you can educate the people. So you got people finance, you got people academically educated, then you educate them on the process. Now you get the process, and then you buy the politicians. Once you buy the politicians, now you are setting up people who will advocate for you, not the devil, you. You have those people advocate for you, and then you can keep these laws off your back. What I want you to understand is this: if we don't organize, come together, and we don't immobilize, come together and organize, and then set up a way to fight, you are in imminent danger. If you haven't noticed this, there's been an uptick in police violence. There's been an uptick in a whole lot of things that are returning, that are destructive to our community. And if you don't believe this, just continue to watch the news. That same news that tell you that people in Chicago are crazy and it's going crazy. These people, I don't understand this. But guess what? They're not reporting the fact that these police officers are busting windows, snatching men out of cars and beating the hell out of them. Why are you not reporting that? Because it's not advantageous to your program to let other people who are being attacked know that they're under attack. Because then you will immobilize. And when you immobilize, you'll organize. When you organize, there's nothing to stop you. But the ignorance will continue to pervade and we will continue to destroy each other. Let's just look at something simple. We must start elevating without denigration. What do I mean by that? Let's start at a basic level. One of the greatest things in my life is to used to go to the barbershop, and me and my friends, we would sit around and yell and scream and argue at each other all day. We talking about people like my man Jimmy Williams, Coach Jimmy Williams, salute to Coach Jimmy, would literally bring pans of chicken and liquor because it was a show. And we would, this guy, and I love that guy, and this guy's the best player doing this, and that guy's the best player doing that. And it was never to denigrate Magic Johnson or Larry Bird, or Dr. J was never greater than Magic Johnson, but it's Dr. J's my guy, and Michael Jordan came along, and so forth and so on. Today's conversation is always the denigration of the one person. If I like someone, I cannot say my guy is my favorite. I must destroy your guy in order to do it. This is the same thing that we're doing in social settings. In order to say the former Mayor Harold Washington of Chicago, black man, the very first black man to hold the office of mayor in Chicago, we don't have to destroy Brandon Johnson to say Harold Washington was an excellent man. I don't have to destroy Jesse Jackson to say Dr. King was great. I don't have to say Huey P. Newton was not good to elevate Fred Hampton. We don't have to destroy someone to advocate for them. This is not a pie graph where it's only so much credit to go around. It's a bar graph. If he's an A plus and he's an A plus, they both can be A pluses. And that's where we're going wrong. See, he didn't do ... and he didn't do ... That is a problem, people. In order to love someone or show love to someone, you don't have to say this person isn't worse. The Ohio Players could be your favorite band, and you can love Earth, Wind, and Fire. You can love Stevie Wonder. You can love Marvin Gaye. You can love Isaac Hayes, and you can love Barry White. You don't have to pick one. You can enjoy it all. You can enjoy Jesse Jackson. You can enjoy Al Sharpton, and you can love Dr. King. What we have to get away from is the destruction of someone to elevate. This last week, the hip-hop producer or music producer, Will I Am, said, Black Thought from the Roots is 7 times better than Jay-Z. Why must he be 7 times better than Jay-Z? And at the end of the day, Mr. I Am, he's only 7 times better than him in your opinion. And you're entitled to that, and I will embrace you for having that. But why must Jay-Z be down here for Black Thought to be way up here? You know what? They can both be way up here. They can both be kings of this thing. And that's where we go wrong. We tear down we mimic our oppressor. In order for Eddie Murphy to be great, we must mention that Richard Pryor used drugs. No, they both are excellent comedians. They both are culturally impacted, and they both are two of the funniest men in the history of the world, whether it be on stage, whether it be in interviews, or whether it be in movies. They are equally great. Dave Chappelle does not have to be great. So he does not have to be horrible. So Bruce can be great. Michael Jordan is great. LeBron James is great. Guess what? You don't have to like either one of them. You can love Kobe, but you do not reduce their greatness because you love Kobe Bryant. Well, who's the top 5? There's no such thing. Because guess what? If you truly love the activity, somebody's going to be different every 10 or 15 years because he's no longer going to hold that position. Here's the beauty in it. Joe Frazier was great. George Foreman was great. Muhammad Ali was great. They are all great boxers. Ray Leonard was great. Marvin Hagler was great. Tommy Hearns was great. Nobody said anything. They all fought. We all enjoyed it, and we all lived to have great conversation about it. At no point did we destroy Ray Leonard so we can celebrate Marvin Hagler. You shouldn't have to destroy someone in your community in order to embrace and celebrate someone else, is the point. That is the crab in the barrel mentality. I can love my lady. I can think she walks on water, but you're not going to tell me that she's not the most beautiful woman in the world. I don't care who you believe. Oh, well, she's not as beautiful as Holly Berry, and that would be to you. She's not as funny as this person, that would be to you. See, we get into these situations to whereas the prevailing opinion, public opinion, becomes fact. And opinion is a point of view. It is not a fact. My opinion of 2 + 2 is not 4. That is a fact. But 4 is the coolest number in the world. Well, actually, it's 5 because that was my number. But 5 is the coolest number in the world, is only to me. I don't have to say the other trillions of numbers in the universe are not as cool as 5. It's just my favorite. You don't have to denigrate to celebrate. Celebrate who you like. I love hip hop music. I don't say anything bad about any other music unless Patti LaBelle singing it. But that's another situation. I'll tell you about it another day. But I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. But I think I'm the greatest podcast in the history of the world. Just because the other guys make more money than me, that doesn't mean I'm not as good as them. Now, that is my point of view. There's other people out there that tell me I'm a darn lie. But that's just my point of view. But guess what? I don't have to name people to elevate myself. I can just say I'm the best. When you heard Muhammad Ali in 1963 say I'm the greatest of all time, he didn't disregard Ray Robinson. He didn't disregard Joe Louis. He didn't disregard anybody. He just said, I'm the greatest, because that was his point of view. He didn't identify anything. But when you identify and push something down to elevate yourself, you're part of the problem. You're not part of the solution. Celebrate yourself. Celebrate what you like. Embrace what you like. But guess what? If you listen to what I like, now you like 2 things instead of 1. Do you want $1 or do you want $1 million? You want $1 million. If you can enhance your palate, your mental, your physical to make it a better situation, that's what you should do. You would not pick, oh, well, I don't want $10 million because I only want this $1 million. No, you want 10, you want 100, you want $1 billion. So why would you limit yourself to only liking one thing? Favorite and better are 2 different things, and it's only better to you. So if you are a member of this community and you like other things, remember, don't tear down anything to celebrate what you like. Again, to reference my lady, I think she's the funniest. I think she's the most intelligent. I think she's the most fun. And that's why she's my lady. I love my children. I love our children. These are the most intelligent, the most witty, the most fun, the most engaging people in the world. And because they're ours, not because you think so, because we think so. I think my community is the dopest in the history in the history of Earth. There's documented proof to what I say, but guess what? Other people can trick themselves, and that's why they have their wrong ass opinion and I have mine. They're not wrong, just their opinion is wrong. I'm being facetious, but I want you to understand, I don't have to destroy you to love me. And that's it. If you stop identifying what you don't like about us, if you stop identifying what could go wrong, if you stop buying into the foolishness and the nonsense that permeates throughout the media, because that's not permeating through our community. The media is putting that in front of you. you will stop buying into the foolish, the madness, and the dreads of life that they tell you that we're participating in. Then at that point, you'll realize, you'll look to your left and you'll see a bunch of people who look just like you, who are doing what you're doing and being excellent as well. And you look to your, and you'll see the same thing. You'll look up, you'll look down, and you'll say, wait a minute, who are all these crazy people at? They're on the television. Because when you walk through your neighborhood, it's just not people getting shot, stabbed, robbed, raped. That's not happening. There are a few people doing it. About 8.5 to 10% of the population participates in erroneous activities. The other 90% of us, we get up and bust our behinds at work to places that we don't like and hopes to come home and have peace of mind. So stop buying into the foolishness and nonsense and the chaos and stop believing in who you are. With that being said, I'll see you guys tomorrow. I have a special guest, Ty. He'll be on talking about his life and how he changed his life, how his life was altered, and how he changed his life, and how he will continue to enhance his life and live the best life he can live on a daily basis. 2 fingers, 1 word. I'm HRap.
Growth in wisdom, knowledge, you see, self-understanding and self-discovery, healthy relations, self-control, all those things are hateful. But this is the only way a minority can rule over a majority of people, is by turning their minds backwards so that they love the things that destroy them and hate the things that move them forward. In order for these people to rule over us, we must hate learning. It has to be built into us. We must think that we can't do math. Because you see, if we do math, if we were into learning, if we were into research and into thinking and into, real philosophical ideas and abstractions, we would defeat those people. They know it. So consequently, what they must do is rob you of all of these things so that they may stay in their